Hey everybody, welcome back to another deck deep dive. But first, as always, let's do a bit of Wargame. We left off at the 30th, so let's do 31st and 1st and even 2nd of August. 3 Wargames today. Alright, let's do the good old Leopard 2 at the start. Alright, fast and 70 with 10 HP. Potentially very big. Could be a plane, could be a helicopter. Has maximum of 2 weapons. Is in mech and armored. In mech and armored and faster than 70 kmh with 10 HP makes me think this could be a plane. I don't remember if autonomy shows the time over target for planes or their actual. No, it should because it doesn't show fuels. Yeah. I'm gonna guess it's a plane. It could be like a very big helicopter, like a CH-53, although I guess it's not West German, so it can't be that. But it's also very old, so I think it's gonna be a plane, like a cheap plane. Let's go for like F5B. Oh, that has 3 weapons. Let's go with something that has 2 weapons and is cheap. Like the North Korean MiG-21. I think it's a PFM. It is a plane with relatively low autonomy. It's not in Marines. It's even cheaper than 65. Cheaper than 65. Not 1000 kmh either. Could be like one of those. With something like that. It's an MMG. There's not a lot of planes with MMGs. There's very few of them, in fact. Oh god. It's like an F-86. This thing maybe? It is napalm. Oh my god, what is it? MMG. It's not not a proper gun. It's also 50 points, right? It is 600. Unless of course some weapons might be classified wrong. The fudge? No, it's not West German. Okay, I mean, obviously I should have known it's not this thing because, you know, South Korea, it's the same coalition and we don't know what coalition it's from. Like, it has a weapon here, right? It can't be like the Delphin either or something. Is it the F5? Which F5 is the one with the napalm? Is it the F5 base? It's also not North Korean. Anyway, what am I doing, dude? I'm throwing. Oh, could it be the Anzac? Oh, what's it? Something with a strike mass. Is it this? It is the strike mass. Alright. I forgot it has like a minigun of some sort. But yeah, like a low caliber with a minigun. Okay. Admittedly, it was not a good run by me. I was too, I guess, out of the zone in that case, not even in the zone. Okay, it's not a plane. It has a maximum of 2 weapons. Poor stealth. Poor optics, or bad optics. Go T-55A. It's probably not smart to go with something that has bad. I can probably doesn't really matter. It does have poor optics. Okay, it's not a tank. Also, yeah, more than 15 points. Oh well. Faster than 50. Not a tank and pretty expensive. And it doesn't even have medium optics. Probably some kind of helicopters. Go for like an MI-24. 2 weapons though, 2 weapons. Or maybe even just 1 weapon. At least 65 points. Like it is 10 HP. It is 10 HP. Could be a CV, I suppose. No, CVs have medium optics. Except like 1 or 2, admittedly. And it could also just have no weapons. But I'm just gonna go assume it's not a CV. It could, I guess, just an anti-air unit, right? Those tend to not have medium optics. So let's go for like a part A2. At least 65, it's newer. It is reasonably fast, yep. Autonomy might actually be lower though, admittedly. It's also not medium, it's small or big, which the Gepard isn't. Pretty sure the Gepard is medium. This is an odd one. I guess it could also just be an artillery piece, like it's on weapons, 2 weapons. Or okay, not 3 weapons. Cesar. Cesar is pretty new, pretty expensive, pretty fast. Autonomy, I actually don't know. Oh, but this. I assume it's gonna be big. It's an artillery piece. It is indeed big. Actually, it's bad optics, not for interesting. Maybe it is not a howitzer. Maybe it is a anti-air unit then. A big anti-air, like a Book M1. Book M1 isn't that fast though. Let's go with like the wheeled Neva. I think that's this one. Oh, we got this thing right. Oh, is it the Yugoslav Neva then? Price 90. The M1T is 95. There you go. Nice. Alright, Neva M1. 10 HP is correct. Better stealth than poor. Oh yeah, at least good stealth then. Interesting. Infantry squad, potentially. 10 HP infantry squad. Would be slower. Yep. Everything here fits. 3 weapons. Old as well. Let's go for Motostrelki. Infantry is correct. Oh, okay, not surprising. Not in either mech or armored. So it's likely not to be a line squad. I guess we also know that after speed. In motorized and support, most special forces are not in support. I'm gonna assume it's a shock squad like Mordschützen. I mean, also we would have known it by VKM that it's shock because it's a saw, not an MMG. Some of the assault rifle, right? I should have looked at that as well. Right, they're also not in mech. Oh, I'm stupid. Speed is incorrect actually. Hold on. There's not a lot of choices if they're in support. Also, what am I doing? Speed 20. A price 20, I mean, it's light infantry either way. Light infantry is actually would be like, hold on, what's 20 points? 20 points light infantry. But it's not Yugoslavia, it can't be Brodska Pesh. Could be at Buffalo Space 20, they might be, but it's not an RPG 7, they have an RPG 7. Motor Marine Air Support. Marines. Could it be? Not an assault rifle is interesting. It actually means it can't be a whole lot of it. Base Gurkhas, maybe? No, 10 HP. Gurkhas are 20. Sorry, 15. They're also on 20 points anyway. Yakari are also 15 HP. I mean, I was also thinking of Nolan's Yakari, but aren't they 25 points or am I misremembering? They're also 15 HP. Legion, I'm pretty sure are not in support. Base Legion, they might have a battle rifle though. I also don't. Are they 20 points? They are probably 20 points. This is an odd one. Oh, hold on. Why am I thinking of light shock infantry? Oh, no, no. Light shock infantry is correct. Light shock infantry. Not East German. Can't be Czech either or Polish because of the respective coalitions. Finland, out of the question. Gongbobyeong. They have an AK-74, but their their Japanese counterpart is 20 points, is light, 10 HP. Doesn't have a lot of a ridiculous rifle though. Have a ridiculous rifle. It shouldn't be them. It shouldn't be them. And I'm pretty sure Gongbobyeong have an assault rifle, like an AK, so it can't be those either. Oh, this is interesting. Commonwealth only is Gurkhas and Highlanders. Highlanders are even regulars. South Africa only has buffaloes. Israel doesn't have light infantry. Italy has Alpini, but their weapon is. It might actually be classified as a law because Eugen can be incompetent at times. They're also 15 men. I'm probably missing something very obvious. Maybe it is. Like, it can't be Soviet. Red 4, it can only be. China doesn't have light infantry. Red Dragons or Finnish, because everything else would be in a coalition with these nations. Finland only has Kartinjakari, which are 15 men. North Korea has Gongbobyeong, but they have an assault rifle. Also, this is classified as law. And I'm pretty sure. And Gongbobyeong, they have an assault rifle, which probably is classified differently. I'm gonna give it. It is classified as a law. God damn it. I thought it would be classified differently. So, if you look at Udo Ren, rigorous rifle, but classified as law. And then if you look at these things here, those are actually classified as ridiculous. Damn it, man. But I was under. Hold on. No, it is green. I completely misremembered. So the thing with the coloring in Wargame, I'm pretty sure it happens automatically, right? It's not like hard-coded or anything. Basically, what it does, I think, is it more or less just as soon as you're part of like weapon classification, right? Like, which you can essentially find out if you hover over it, right? Like law or belt rifle or so, right? It just, I think, compares the highest and lowest value in the respective categories within that classification, and then automatically assigns or like color codes it based on that. And I'm somewhat certain that this actually happens automatically, which is like kind of neat, admittedly. And for some reason in my mind, I thought the 875 meters on the vampire was blue, indicating it's like essentially the highest or very close to the highest value you could have in that category. But obviously, evidently, I'm wrong. It was actually green. Alright, well, that sucks. Either way, into the actual deep dive. South Africa. Now, admittedly, I'm not a South Africa expert. But it doesn't mean I can't give you tips on the units or tell you if they're good or not. Logistics, nothing too crazy in here. Commandants actually have crazy amount of transport variety. One common thing is, I mean, obviously, the Oryx is a solid transport, like 8 HP, 300 kmh. That's very, very neat, very fast, and 8 HP is good. Not a lot of stuff can one-shot that. You can get that at Hell variants. Unfortunately, oh no, never mind. There it is. I was about to say. I thought I misremembered. No, you can get them in the mortar transport, which is very neat. See, with the the thing with CV infantry is it's a very good type of target for utility transports, if that makes any sense, right? Well, of course you can meme around with it, and I'm not saying it's not effective. You probably don't want to use an infantry slot for a Ratel 60 card, so to speak, right? But being able to just get a free mortar with your infantry CV is probably, on average, nicer than just getting an autocannon. On the one hand, of course, the autocannon with Ratel 20 would just be decent base defense, right? So it wouldn't be amazing, but solid. But this is just, a single mortar, I think, on average, probably can impact more than a single Ratel 20. Except, of course, the times when a single Ratel 20 sneaks around and kills like 2 CVs or something like that, right? But yeah, that's pretty neat. Obviously, literally no tracked transports available in South Africa. Everything is 150 km/h on the road. And a lot of the stuff also has very good off-road speed, right? 90 km/h being more or less the lowest, except for the 5-point track, of course. It's pretty good. 90 km/h is already like at least average, I'd say. Probably still above average a bit. And then, of course, 105 km/h off-road is very good. Only fun is just a Centurion CV. It's fine. 130 points for per card in South Africa with decent survivability. Not much you can complain about. Obviously, poor off-road speed, but actually somewhat decent for Centurions. Usually they can be even slower. Ratel, wheel CV 2 front armor is neat. Unfortunately, not 2 side armor. But 50 cal helps a bit. Jeep CV, 110 points, decently fast. Buffalo is actually very interesting because it has the same availability as Jeep CVs, but it's got 10 HP. Even has some armor. Now, the armor doesn't help a ton. It mainly helps against cluster. Well, not actually, no. Clusters doesn't help because it is 1-0 top armor. Helps against like kinetic hits, taking full damage as opposed to double damage. Doesn't help at all against high explosive artillery, by the way. But what does help against high explosive artillery is having 10 HP instead of 5. So if you want to go for a high availability CV, please go for the Buffalo. It's worth it. And you have the Caspier, which there's no real reason to take it, honestly, over the Ratel. 5 points for 2 front armor, a Browning, and a better off-road speed. Easily worth it. Special fob with a unique image. Huge supply helo and supply trucks. Pretty basic. Infantry. Unita is an okay recalless rifle squad. It's not really anything to write home about. It has okay range. Not so great AP, right? For the same price, you can get 16 AP squads, right? Which is a shame. It probably would be a bit too good for 10 points because of the range, right? Yeah, you might sometimes run those. Even bad, like mediocre recalless rifle squads are, can be very solid to have here and there, especially against motor decks or other light decks. So it's not like it's a bad unit. It's also worth pointing out that it's one of the few squads that does not have access to the Ratel line, which also hurts them a bit. You probably would like to have Ratels. They're better than Caspiers. Caspiers are neat, right? Even the 1 armor, it's basically a VAB T20. Slightly worse, actually, because it has worse accuracy. It has 15 and not 20%. But still a very high rate of fire on that thing. Bockup, incredibly basic, and actually for Blue 4, it's one of the better Blue 4 line infantry. Obviously, on most of the time, you would have much rather have like 10-point MG3 infantry, right? But it's the only Blue 4 line infantry squad that gets the RPG 7, which is very good. Very good to have. Battle rifle is good. The brand is not very solid, not very great at all, but yeah. A big thing here is, of course, the Ratel line. Ratel 20, 15 points, 2 armor, and a very good autocannon, or like a very high rate of fire autocannon. It's not the best autocannon out there. At long ranges, you're gonna struggle a lot against other autocannon vehicles with better autocannons. But the closer you get, the better you get. Yeah. Comes in varieties, of course. You can get a Milan for 5 points, which is good. You can get the mortar variant. It can be fun to spam this, right? You get lots of mortars per card, and if a very high rate of fire. So it can be fun. It's not effective, I would say, but it can certainly be fun, at least. Rattle 90, I don't like it. It can be like decent fire support, right? The 3HE is good. This unit itself is cheap, but then you have to pay with infantry, right? It doesn't even one-shot 1 armor. there were a few people who assumed or feared that this thing would be really broken or OP. Never seen it dominate anything. Obviously, if you've seen the meme video back then, it did some stuff, but practically speaking, it is not that great. It's not horrible, but I think the autocannon variants are by far superior. Helicopters, whatever. Bockup 90, very good squad. 23 AP, good range, good accuracy. What more do you want? Well, an MG3 and 20 RPM, please. If you look at the Italian 90s light infantry. But no, even if you ignore even without ignoring those, Bockup 90 is still very good. They're gonna struggle against infantry, of course. They don't have an MG3 to make up for anything. They have an assault rifle. They still have some very good transports, but they're basically just cheap access to good AT. That's their main purpose, really. Usually they're being run in one card because, yeah, Moto still has those, but yeah. Buffalo's base, incredibly strong for infantry grinds. 20 points, 15 HP, and the Minimi clone. Very strong against infantry. Battle Rifle is good as well, just don't go into CQC unless you're fighting line infantry or something. RPG7, of course, is not amazing, but you're paying 20 points for a 15 HP shock squad, right? Gotta have downside somewhere. If you're gonna take a, let's say, basic anti-tank weapon, RPG7 is pretty much the best you can get. So, good for grinding and taken as a result every now and then. Buffalo's 85, not the Oryx, there you go. Very good, of course. Worse MG than the base Buffaloes, but at least it got buffed with the Italy patch. AKM, assault rifle, battle rifle is probably better, but assault rifle is fine. And of course, a Milan 1, right? It's not gonna kill super heavies or anything, but incredibly difficult to properly dislodge when assaulting a town, especially if you rely on cheap fire support or light fire support, IFVs and such. And one shot up to 3 armor. If you're playing Yugoslavia mech and you rely a lot on PvPs, they just get one shot, right? Can be very annoying. And obviously very good for that, and pretty much always taken. Burgenmag, there you spam. It's probably the best if you just want to meat shields. It's the best you can get. You are forced to take him in a 10-point transport, but they're 5-point space with 15 HP, so it's not that bad. It's also still very nice to just take him in a K car. Now, of course, the K car also gets lower veterancy. It doesn't get the same veterancy as you get on Bockup or Shock Infantry or anything, so that comparatively makes it a bit worse. But it's still 20 points with a 15 HP squad, and you get a bunch of autocannons. Yes, it's very low veterancy, but if it gets close enough, it can still do a lot of damage. So I really like this card. Inflict. The Inflict are interesting. Let's take a closer look at their stats, because I think that's worth pointing out. Yeah, by the way, they were crazy in early testing, ridiculous. Just insta-stunning everything left and right with one shot in a huge radius. It was a sight to behold. So, they have, of course, HE only, right? They can shoot at vehicles, but if they have any noteworthy armor, they're pretty much going to do no damage. They can still panic and stun them, but that's about it. Now, not only do they have twice the HE of normal HE rounds on recoilless rifles, they have a lot more range, for one. They have a minimum range, but that's also only or mainly to protect the squad itself, by the way. A ton of suppression. And a significantly bigger splash radius, both for the damage and the suppression. So they can be nice support squads. They're a bit louder, but it doesn't really matter that much. They are just a bit iffy, because these days, recon vehicles, IFVs, 5-point spam is everywhere. And that's where they're gonna really struggle. It's just very awkward to honestly balance them. Maybe they should have gotten but then if you give them AP rounds, they're just crazy long range recoilless rifles, right? It's a bit awkward to get them into a good spot. They're okay, they're niche. Every now and then it can be nice, but since you're usually playing Moto, let me put it this way. Since you can't play mech with South Africa, and none of these squads are available in mech, you can never get a 9 infantry slot specialization, where you definitely would take a car of them. They're in a similar niche with grenade launcher squads, right? long range, AG fire support, niche, can sometimes do a ton of damage and really save you a game, but oftentimes just not worth buying because of the situation you're in or the deck you're up against, and thus hard to justify putting into the deck, right? Like into a general deck. So that's where they are. It's not like they're inherently bad, it's just that they're niche. They are bad if you talk about squads or like units putting into a general deck that they can pretty much always use, because then they're often useless or like hard to justify buying, and as such they're in a sense bad. But yeah, just awkward unit, unfortunately. But better this way than, trust me, the way it was on early testing. It was just awkward to balance. Mechanf. They're basically Rima base, right? Elrag, very basic MG, battle rifle. They're okay. There's just never really a reason to take it, because when you start looking at your shock squad, 20 points, and for 5 points more, you get a significantly better AT weapon. That's just quite the upgrade, right? Makes them so much better. The infantry DPS is still not very good because they still have just a basic MG, unfortunately. They do get the Rattle line though, unlike the other shock squad, which is their upside compared to the Parabat, as we'll see in a second. So despite them being a good chunk worse than Parabat 90, you might still every now and then see them, simply because you get the Rattles. You get shocks with the 2 armor transports, right? And that's a big deal, because the 2 armor, especially against other recoilless rifles and such, will allow you to actually get to the front line much safer sometimes. And of course, it means the Rattles that you buy come with high veterancy compared to line infantry. Milan is fine. The deck really hurts, or you really notice that you don't get a Milan 2 or something. So that's the only option. It's still good, but when you are already a deck that has to rely on like light stuff, not having access to a heavy duty infantry based AT at long range, you notice it. Commonly used in a Rattle 20 Milan, since you don't get any 5-pointers in this deck, it's hard to like spam them as much as you might in other decks, right? Parabat, the first blue 4 15-point shock squad. It's not very amazing though. Unlike Motritzen, right, which were like the first 15-point shock squad. Just a basic MG and not an RPK. Still the RPG-7, which is nice, but they don't quite hold the candle. And of course, you are forced to pay at least 10 points for their transports. And they don't get the Rattel line. It's only the K cars again, which is good, but you can't do this combination. But honestly, if you want to spam shocks for, spamming for grinding infantry, you're just better off using base buffaloes. Yes, you pay 5 points more, but the squad itself is also just so much better. Since you have to pay at least 25 points, 25 versus 30 points is sounds much less bad than 15 versus 20, right? And Parabat 90, the counterpart to the Mech-Inf 90, but in this case, you get a mini SS, which is basically a mini-me. And thus a much better MG. And of course, the same transport problem here. Saber, flamethrower infantry, you don't really need them. Usually you're playing, again, Moto, if you're playing the strongest variant, and you're running, in that case, Buffaloes for infantry grinding, and you get free veterancy. But if you want flamers, that's an option. That said, though, because Rattels and a lot of squads are armored. Blue for armored, for example, might run those in a Rattel or something. SASF, basically, SASF and the 90 variants are like LSTR 40 and the FJP 40, right? SASF also have a Strela 2M, which I'm not sure if it's the same Strela as FJP have, but have a faster real time than other manpads. So 4 instead of 6 seconds, and you get more of them, which is pretty neat, admittedly. But I want to say that the FJP have a 50% accuracy manpad. Let me check that in the Armory tool. They have the Strela 3, which does indeed have 50% and more range. That is worth noting. You do notice that range on manpads, the range difference. Accuracy you will notice as well. But unlike the FJB, you get 19 AP and 60% accuracy on your AT weapon, which is neat. And you have a carbine and not an assault rifle. Obviously, good squad. Not as good as SASF-90, but you only get 1 card of those, so you frequently see those being run as well. And they're pretty good. Much cheaper, still very multi-role, and can be annoying to dislodge, so do not underestimate these little flickers. 90's variant, of course, very good. Apilas, amazing. Stinger A, much better than Strela. What more can you ask for? Well, Vampire and Iglar, which I think are both better, but you know, Stinger Unita, they're fine. I mean, they're Stinger Squad, right? Stinger Squads are always good, but like, you usually run SASF, right? And you don't want to use another slot on just a manpad, so Thriller 2 and 3, yeah, they exist. Support tab. Not a lot of stuff, but boy, is it packed. Cactus, amazing from the get-go. It's basically a Crotal. Oh, it's literally a Crotal, right? Except for the name. It's S tier, right? 60% accuracy, non-radar, great range, wield, 6 HE. Amazing. They have an upgraded variant, which is fine for get and has a little bit more range against helicopters. And 5% more accuracy. It's still very good. Honestly, I can't tell you which I think is truly better. I usually still tend more towards a Cactus because 75 points for only 4 missiles is a bit pricey. Given the role is also like an anti-helo unit, right? So you don't want to have to micro this against like basic empty transports or something. Because if you don't, then you might just waste missiles. It's not like a Book M1, which of course also only has 4 missiles, but usually is kept behind range where it mainly shoots at planes, so you don't have to worry about that. It's easy to waste missiles. On the other hand, right, Fine Forget is neat. The extra range is nice. Additional accuracy on top of that, very good, of course. They're both very good choices. I can't really tell you which one is definitively better, right? That said, though, this is also very good, and because it's so close price range wise, I usually don't run the SAHV. The CAHVM is, I assume it's like a further upgrade on those missiles, right? I mean, SAHV, IR, infrared, I presume, and 3, I presume it's like more or less from the same family. Very good, right? It's kind of like an E-290 in a sense. It also only carries 4 missiles, but it has crazy plane range while still having 3.5 kilometers versus helicopters, right? Obviously, it's radar, but it's even faster as well. Has some armor, so honestly, with 3 top front armor, you can very often just get out alive, If a tank runs you down, either you can just reverse and still be faster, even if it's moving on the road. It's so easy to just shoot and scoot, stay out of range of any ground unit, basically, because of your crazy range against both targets. You're gonna hit all the time. Like, genuinely one of the best anti. Honestly, I'd go so far to say that this might be the best anti-air unit in the game. This is, there are of course stuff like E-290, which could also, E-290 has the advantage of being non-radar, twice missiles, but a good chunk of planes, range versus planes, right? So this thing is certainly up there, though. Like, boy, like this plus SISF 90, kind of all you need, honestly. The only sad part is you only get 1 card, but then in South Africa you can definitely just take this down with it and be safe. Even up with it is fine. You don't need much more. Obviously you want some base defense, but for offensive anti-air, like this is like the best multi-role anti-air unit, right? It's kind of similar to the Tor, which is very good against helicopters and planes, but just on steroids. The only downside really is the missile count, but it has to have some sort of downside, right? This is a crazy good unit. And honestly, if any other deck had this available, I think people would complain left and right. Because it's just such a good unit, man. Maybe some of you remember, I had the 10 versus 10 video where I was really shooting and scooting a ton with this. Okay, hold on 1 second. I don't know why I say 1 second, I can just pause the recording. Either way, this is 3 years ago, 11th of January 22. I played 10v10 with the South Africa moto and I just keep shooting and scooting with the with my roycats here. Let's see the kill list here. If you don't want to get spoiled, just watch the video or something. You can find it, I presume. I want to see the kill list. Look at this 10v10, by the way. MO28, Su-27M, Syria, Su-24, MiG-29. Look at this, man. That thing is just crazy. That's not okay. Just Su-24 in the second one. I presume I bought this later. God, that unit is just crazy good. Oh, you can't even see this. There you go. That's the Roycat, and there's the other one, right? The HVM. It is that unit. I'm sorry that I keep cooming over this, but it's just so good. If mortars 2 HE, 3 HE, they're basic 120. Has does it have a faster aim time? Honestly, at this point, I can't remember which 5 HE mortar. Yep, just like the VPM 120, there's a faster aim time than other 5 HE mortars. But it also only carries 36 rounds, right? That thing empties itself quickly, costs 60 points, and it's gonna be a bitch to resupply the 4 because it's gonna eat up your supply. As a result, I can't really recommend that. It's just the ammo count, man. This thing is bad but fun. You can like take 2 cards and you can really keep stuff on flame all the time. It's gonna eat your fob as well, though. So, Valkyrie is fine. It's a decent low point HE MLRS. Reloads decently quickly, I think. It used to be really good in beta. It fortunately got a bit nerfed. It was a bit too good. It's also non-prototype because wanna be careful with that. It's fine. It's solid. I usually run the Rhino, but yeah. Battleur is kind of like Lar 160, I think. I think Lar 160 has 4 AP, which is a big deal actually. It's can be neat. They can really be hit and miss these low HG cluster MLRs. Like on paper, you like it's heat. Every time it hits, it deals at least 1 damage, right? In practice, though, more often than not, sometimes you just don't hit anything. Sexton, now that's a funny thing. First of all, it's a howitzer, so it has a higher splash radius than 4 HG mortars. It also has a 10-second aim time, which is funny for some reason. I presume maybe Eugene copied it from a mortar and then adjusted some stuff. I don't know how, but that's how it is. Yeah. It's the priest works, the sexton doesn't really. Rhino, most accurate artillery piece in the game, I believe. Can be neat to shoot and scoot. It's fine. Doesn't have the highest rate of fire, but of course, it is incredibly accurate. What can I say? Isarvag is, I think it's just a copy. Yeah, it's just a copy of the Norwegian NM45, right? Like the gun, at least. Jersey, definitely not. It looks very fancy. Like, not fancy, more like funky. It's fine for cheap base events. I prefer the boss Varg, because it's actually like good stun capabilities. Boss Varg has the disadvantage of having to reload pretty frequently, right? So you need more than one for base defense. Roykat, the CA35 is basically like a Gepard on wheels. I think. Yeah, Gepard on wheels. Rate of fire wise, good accuracy, acceptable stabilizer. Having any stabilizer at all is very good already because it is wheeled, right? That's why you really want a stabilizer. Not the best stabilizer, but it's fine. It's better than like nothing, right? And of course, like any Roy card, incredibly fast. Logim is basically like an SCRV 1-to-1, but you trade 1 rate of fire for 1 front armor, which is honestly definitely a good trade. It's still decently fast. Not the best autonomy, but just workable enough. Obviously, you don't see that often for one, because South Africa in general you don't see that often, and then most of the time you see Moto, right? And you don't get it in Moto. You also don't really have to support units like tracked infantry spam or something that usually works well with this. It's by no means bad, but you're kind of weakening your deck by using it, because that means you're not playing Moto. Yeah. It's fine. You get 2 cards, so you can spam quite a few of them. So, that's something. The Olifants, these are basically just basic Centurions, nothing special. They're never really run them. Mark 1B is kind of like a Leopard 1A5. And now they get like a fancier turret or something with 10 RPM. Good AP and front armor for the price. Given the RPM and like accuracy is very good. You don't get an MG, not huge, but worth pointing out. But this one also only has poor optics, which is really annoying. At this price range, you really want to start having that medium optics. And I think that really hurts us a lot. Otherwise, I think you'd see this a good amount. Like as a defensive tank in Moto decks or something. You still get this in Moto, which is good. Still no MG, but medium optics. 15 front armor. I mean, look at that turret, dude. Look at the chonker, man. Ugly as hell, but yeah. It's very good. Lacks autonomy though, right? All the armor, I guess, is weighing that bugger down. Rocket 76 at least got 9 RPM now with the Italy patch. Most of the time you just don't see it because for 10 points more you get 5 AP plus an additional range snap, which just does so much work for you. Even if you use 1 RPM, you also get 3 HE, right? Yeah. You just want to get them into death balls, usually. Because for sneaking around you have the recon variant. So for offensive play, you want a death ball of like 4 stacks. They're just gonna move left and right, ideally. You just never let your opponent like consolidate an defensive position. Obviously, very good. I think the heart of the deck, really. You want to push with this. You want to attack with this. Or even defend, right? You can quickly move out of range of enemy tanks while shooting at their support or their meat shields that are in front of their tanks and such and stuff like that, right? Their speed is their survival tool. Basic recon helo, that thing we already exist for France. You get an end tag, which not horrible actually. Because of the stealth, it's easier to stay hidden while firing this. 20 AP is not nothing. It's just the range and the accuracy, right? If it had at least range, it's also the speed on the meta, right? It's an M class, it's gonna be slow as heck, so. Brokout 76, it's not a Centauro. It's so good, right? Obviously, as always with recon units, the stealth helps quite a bit that you're gonna get. And of course, you can spot stuff. You're gonna run this. It's not like a groundbreaking unit. It's good, like I said. Fortunately, the recon Centauro exists, but other Pathfinders, initially I assumed they were gonna be really good to have. Because basically, right, these grenade launchers, they're basically not impacted by the training, right? So I was like, they're basically like Navy SEALs or Formosa, but you get just more of them per card. So one card already gets you 6, or in this case 7 of them. That's really good. Practically speaking, they're just actually a good chunk worse. You notice it with the primary weapon being worse, slower, of course, less resilient to stress and all that. So practically speaking, they're not that great actually. They're still gonna spot just as well, but you'd much rather have an anti weapon even if it's just a basic law. Rover exists, SSF sniper. Sniper, recon sniper with a kinetic gun. If you like that, you can meme around with it. Fine. Worth pointing out that this and the Yugoslav one, I believe, have 1750 meters. The Canadian one, I believe, only is 1575. Probably because the other two are 20 millimeter and the Canadian one, I think, isn't. Trackers also exist. Again, no anti-tank weapon, which is really annoying, but it is what it is. And the Alpha, which is usually your main recon helicopter. It's a fixed autocannon, so unfortunately not on the turret, but it's still fine. Not that fast, but at least very cheap and has a weapon, so it can be a threat. Also good accuracy, though. It has to, turn the entire helicopter to fire, but the gun itself is good. Battered attack is bad. This is not that great either. This is fine. I mean, it can fire 3 of them in a row before having to reload. It has 2 armor. It has good range and accuracy. It's fast. It's decently affordable. It's a good system, right? Usually these things, they usually lack armor, or they can have only 1 tube. This thing has both, and that's really good. It's not like a game changer that is gonna save you, but it makes it just so much more worthwhile than if it had like any of the other shortcomings. But for once, it doesn't. Yeah, usually it's like an LAVAT. 1 armor, 1 tube. I hate it, right? But this thing actually does it right for me. Again, it's not gonna suddenly elevate it into an S tier unit, but it's actually playable at least. Like, playable is an exaggeration, right? The LAVAT is also more than playable, but it just feels much better to use and, not nearly as punishing. Over 106 if you want the cheaper recoilless rifle, nothing special here. For 5 points more, you get 10 HP and 1 armor. A bit more AP and accuracy, but it doesn't really matter that much. Practically, I don't think it's worth it. It can be worth it, if you wait to run up against like a lot of autocannons. It means you're gonna survive a lot more and actually, potentially survive a reload cycle every now and then to shoot back and maybe win the fight against these units. I think it's probably still better to just run the 106 because they're not here to fight against IFVs most of the time, unless you're like outnumbering them like 4-1 or something and just burst them down with your first salvo. But other than that, they're usually just fire support against infantry or used to spam in the opener, right? This isn't inherently bad, but I think if it had the additional range step, like the Rover Wombat has, would be a much worthwhile upgrade. Like this, I still think the 106 is better. Like the Ferret makes it more versatile, of course, but then like you get 50% more rovers for the same price, right? Which is a lot, right? And having 4 targets to shoot at, like 3 targets to shoot at instead of 2, also helps with survivability, just like the armor and HP does, right? Just in different situations. And the Rattle 90 is just not worth using. It's the vehicle variant of the transport for 5 points more, because transports are always cheaper than non-transports. Practically not very good. Helicopters, Allied K card can be fun to spam. It's actually like this might be like your best base defense unit. I guess what's probably better is this thing, because for 5 points more you get the optics and a better autocannon. But this is still like actually good defensively, right? Because helicopters having to turn for the autocannons isn't that bad when they are allowed to stand still. Where it really hurts is when you fight against other helicopters that have guns, and both you and your opponent are moving, right? You have to slow down first, then you have to turn, then you have to keep looking at the helicopter the enemy helicopter, unless it's standing still, and you might have to keep turning and stuff like that. So awkward, and often leads to death if the opponent helicopter has a gun. A turret on a gun. When you use defensively, you don't have the whole deceleration thing. Your helicopter will also actually, on its own, start turning properly before it's in range. So by the time the helicopter, if you're shooting a helicopter, is there, you're already looking towards it, which helps a lot. And yeah, this is why these kind of units, very cheap, but autocannon, very good for base defense. And very often, stuff that is gonna try to sneak around doesn't have the best anti-helicopter DPS, at least not at like max range. Of course, special forces right under this will immediately melt this, but ideally you want to be in a position where you would spot the unit like at your max range, or even better before that. So yeah, for that purpose, actually quite good. It's just usually you don't want to run more than 2 kinds of helicopters in most tanks. Beta 87 is your AA helicopter, but practically it's just like your fire support helicopter that has some AA coverage, really. I wouldn't recommend using this in the opener for its missiles. You can still kind of use this as an anti-air helicopter if you consider the fact that your anti-air helicopter against helicopters who don't have anti-air missiles, because it has a very good gun. Right? Of course, only 6 HP, not 8 or 10, but still one of the best guns on any helicopter. And it has, means you will melt pretty much any other helicopter that doesn't have anti-air missiles, right? So in that sense, even if you ignore the Kukuris, it's a decent anti-air helicopter. And of course, very good, lots of good rocket pods. Honestly, a must-have. Very good utility in general. Beta 90 versus Royvalk, your 2 anti-tank helicopter options. For one, they have the same missiles, right? One thing to keep in mind is, while they do have 26 AP on the good range and accuracy, very reminiscent of the Hellfire, for example. I believe they're slower though. Yes, they are. They are. Is this toe speed? I think it's toe speed, right? Yeah, that's toe speed. It's not like the slowest missile out there, but usually high-end helicopter-based missiles tend to be faster, right? Not even talking about like the K-52, sorry, K-15, right? The what are they called? The Vickers. It's still a good missile, right? It's still a great missile. Just keep in mind that it's a good chunk slower than a Hellfire. Rollback, on the other hand, though, gets more speed, gets more HP. Same autocannon, by the way, also on a turret. And of course, Mistrals versus Snaps. The Snaps, given that you only get 36, not that huge of a deal, I suppose, on the 87, right? Which gets 72 of them. Mistrals are, of course, very good. But obviously, just like, the Lynx 3, you don't want to use this as like mainly as an anti-air helicopter, unless like you have no other option or something, right? So it's more like a nice to have. Or, just a self-defense against, anti-air helicopters try to kill you, or like a bunch of cheap autocannon helicopters trying to run you down or something. Of course, it helps, right? Yeah. I don't think that's like a definite right choice. I think most people tend to go for the Beta 90 because the same missiles for cheaper. No, you do you. Buccaneer, 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 Buccaneer. I mean, for one, it's literally a hit and miss, you know? I mean, no, technically everything is, I guess. But what I mean is, can be very inconsistent. You know, low base accuracy. You get 2 on veteran, which is neat. You get 4 30 AP missiles, though, right? So you can, and sometimes will, it's not that rare actually, get quite a few of high value target kills in a single run. Can also, of course, be a single. It can also just be the plane's single run too, right? It will die very quickly. Low speed, low ECM, it will fly low. I still think it's a bit too weak. Again, the beta testing, some consider it to be a bit too strong in previous states with like, I think, lower price or high veterancy or something. It can definitely though be one of those units that you can just send out and almost be guaranteed to kill super heavy, because very frequently, especially in 1v1s, people will not often run, at least early on, systems that can shoot this arm before it gets a second missile off or something, right? Keep in mind this still has 3.5 kilometers range, right? And usually your anti-air is behind your super heavy, right? So etc. etc. It's still being run frequently for a reason. One of the reasons, of course, being it's one of the only 2 real anti-tank planes. Carver versus Cheetah Sea. I think I'm gonna look at both of them at the same time. They're basically both super card. Carver is hardened, Cheetah Sea is veteran. So Cheetah Sea has a bit more accuracy because of its high veterancy. Carver has more ECM. It's very similar to the situation that Israel is in, right? Where one of the planes has higher ECM, but more missiles, etc., etc. Same missiles. No, sorry, not the same missiles. The Carver has better short-range missiles. With 6 HE, when you usually only get 6 HE on the medium-range missiles, which is very interesting. But even the Cheetah Sea still has 5 and 5, which is very important. Lower accuracy here, same range though. Both have good guns. Actually, no, the Cheetah Sea has a better gun. I think the Carver having a single. Yep, it does actually have. Yeah, worse gun. The thing with the guns on planes is they are inconsistent. There you go. Yeah, you can see here 0.2 versus 0.4 shot reload. It doesn't really matter a whole ton, but yeah, both are fine. You sometimes just both are being run, not infrequently. You know, both are great. Theta D, nuts. Ayo. It's quote unquote seaplane. Keep in mind you can fire position with those barbs and have a huge splash radius. And they will miss frequently though, but they can also just stun things very quickly, very easily, so keep that in mind. Also very frequently run, also a good multi-role plane. And you have 2 rocket pop planes. Nothing really special about them, honestly. You get what you see, right? Same speed, even the Impala has more missiles, also has a better gun, but worse time over target. You know, there's no real reason to run the Saber over the Impala, honestly. Unless you specifically want to like fly around the map to snipe something, in which case I guess the time over target is quite important to you. Mirage 3 ZZ. I don't even know what the ZZ stands for. I'm pretty sure it's not Czech. It's a cheap, very cheap ASF. Wouldn't really recommend it, but honestly, 4 on Elite, not the worst ASF card out there. F1C said, honestly, this is probably the worst ASF card in this deck. I think I'd much rather have the CZ, the 3 CZ. You still get short range missiles. You still get a twin defa, which is actually very important, having a good gun on your low ASFs. You lose your 1 R530, but you get more kukris. Not really worth it. Cheetah Sea we went over. 3 EZ, same missile as on the Buccaneer. It's like a 1-run thing. Honestly, I'd rather go for the Buccaneer, because usually this just misses, but a Buccaneer will usually at least hit with a second or even third missile because of range scaling, right? But you don't really get that as much with this thing unless you micromanage and turn the missile off, gun run, and then turn it on the last second, but it's like a bit micro-intensive. F1 AZ is very nice. One of my favorite multi-role planes. It's like 3 per card base, and this deck even 4. Decent amount of clusters, good gun, solid short range missiles, decent speed, and affordable. It's very nice. Obviously, not the most survivable plane, and it won't just one shot super enemies from full HP, but like very versatile, very affordable, cheap, consistent, fast. I love this thing. Cheetah E is a bad bomber. It's all I have to say. Cheetah D2 is your Q5D but faster, or your Ghibli, and basically it's basically like the Italian Ghibli. Or to be fair, the Ghibli is like the Cheetah D2 because D2 was here first. Fast, decent ECM, solid short range missiles, and two 15 HE laser guided bombs. Only really the 20 HE laser guided bombs you can really use well with fire precision. Everything else is basically just a vehicle killer, right? Or like a single unit killer. You can split them, I guess, in which case you'd kill 2 units, but unless you're like desperate or something, don't bother firing position with them. Just save the plane rather. You know. Vampire is bad. I guess this. Oh no, this has it. This is an Organ. Never mind. At first I thought it was 50 cal. Then there's the Canberra, also 15 HP like the P5. But unless I'm mistaken, one very, very big and not shown, unfortunately, disadvantage of the Canberra is the altitude. Look at this. Flies much lower and thus is actually a good chunk easier to kill. Also, like takes longer to drop because it's not a single bomb. Yeah. So unfortunately, your only real plane with a good high explosive payload. Oh, sorry, I'm not showing this to you. I'm sorry. There you go. Altitude here, 750 for the Canberra, 1500 for the P5. Unfortunately, the only real plane with a good HE payload, so bombers in the stack not looking too great. Yeah, that was a quick rundown of South Africa. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Bye bye.